Morning, everyone. Welcome to our National Fostering Framework Recruitment and Marketing meeting. What we'll do first is we'll all introduce ourselves, and then people who are watching on the YouTube channel, you can add your comments, and then Rhiannon, once you introduce herself, will wave and we'll describe who's watching from different parts of Wales. Hello, my name's Abby from Monmouthshire County Council.
I'm Nina Kemp-Jones.
I'm Gareth Rosser, Regional Marketing Officer for RCT in Merthyr.
Caroline Quint, the Recruitment Officer for Neath Talbot.
Rhiannon Cook, Communications Officer for Monmouthshire.
Hi. I'm A, and I am
I'm Kelly, and I'm the Communications Officer for Monmouthshire County Council.
I'm Alex McConaughey, Monmouthshire Comms.
Neil Jones, Head of Communications, Torvine Council.
Hayley Lancaster, Communications at Caerphilly Council.
Jane Helmich, Communications Officer, Newport City Council.
Emma Bennett, Blaenau Gwent, Communications and Marketing Officer.
Sean Scannell, Communications Manager for Blaenau Gwent.
Wonderful. Do we have anyone that's added a comment on the YouTube yet, Rhi? Oh, hello, Wrexham and Flintshire. This is so exciting. Welcome. Great. I'll hand over to you now, who will talk through the terms of reference of the group.
Okay, so it was discussed, I think it was discussed at the last meeting about sort of having terms of reference for the group. I think that was discussed. Sorry, it wasn't at the last meeting, but Sarah shows me that it was. And in terms of looking at future meeting plans, venues, frequencies, organisational aspects, including sort of rotation of chairing and minute taking. So how do how do people feel about that? Any sort of ideas, suggestions? Do we go around each region, do it sort of regionally? Are people happy with that idea? And host it regionally? Okay, so we've had Swansea host previously, Gwent host previously, and are we happy for within that region then, as we're doing it regionally, for somebody within the region to do the chairing and the minuting? Yeah? Organise the venue, obviously, if it's your region. How frequently has it been suggested that these meetings be held? Is it sort of quarterly?
That was a suggestion.
Is that everybody sort of happy with quarterly?
Perfect.
In terms of the meetings, it might be worth if we meet sort of 8 weeks before any key peaks in activity. I don't know how other people are finding their fostering campaigns are working, but we're finding that foster care fortnight's really important for us. So perhaps if we meet well in advance of that to plan that out. January is really important for us in terms of New Year's resolutions, and then September time. So perhaps we say quarterly, but if we could, I don't know, your lead time's about 8 weeks. Does that work?
So November, March, July.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah. So that's 3 times a year, not quarterly. But I think that'll be fine to start and test.
Yeah, everybody happy to go with that? November, March, July. Okay, so we're in July. So November then. Okay, so we need to sort of set some kind of organisation around. So who's happy to host sort of the November meeting?
I can do it, Neath Talbot.
Okay, great. Oh, we've had, the first meeting was hosted by Swansea. That's the same region, isn't it?
Yes.
So can we have a nomination for a different region for November meeting? So we've had Gwent and we've had, Swansea and Neath Talbot.
RCT.
Yep, RCT, great. Thanks, Gareth. Okay, is anything else that anybody think needs to be relevant in terms of the terms of reference of the group? purpose? I suppose we need
We
an
had the
identified
discussion
purpose.
around the fact that we're really keen for communications and marketing teams to lead on communications and marketing decisions as opposed to our colleagues that are working in the teams, because rightly they're really busy looking after the children. So to make sure that our social workers have got the time to be doing that important job. So perhaps something in the terms of reference that could perhaps structurally help that, because we were hearing in our Gwent sessions that in some authorities there are some people spending money on communications campaigns that we could help with. So perhaps if that was put in the terms of reference, in terms of how we advise different people take that lead position, have a role and responsibility around developing the recruitment strategies and to try and keep it within comms colleagues. I don't know how people feel about that in terms of a scope.
Could we just check with everyone who's either here or online that doesn't affect them sort of negatively, just in case there is someone here who kind of currently does sit in one of those teams, does the role, but we don't write something in that's going to present a problem for them?
I've just got a question on the YouTube. It just says, happy to host in North. Would a direct train from Cardiff to Wrexham be welcomed?
Yes.
Okay, so something in there. So you're asking a question, Neil, around is that going to provide any challenge, any difficulties for anybody? I think what we were talking about previously is sort of like that relationship between the placement teams and the communication teams. In terms of the placement teams, the majority of placement teams, well, in Gwent, the placement teams holding the budgets, but actually expertise being, you know, with communications and marketing people, and how those things sort of marry up together so that the money that is being spent on in the right way, on the right things that, you know, are going to help attract the most foster carers that we can. So it's kind of that message, isn't it? So I'll
perhaps also, once we have the strategy, either the national strategy or, as we've been discussing, a Gwent strategy, spend shouldn't go outside that strategy. So it's a way of corralling the spend. So again, back to the point of where the person sits, it's just more critical that it's spent in line with the strategy.
When we were at the Swansea meeting, we did kind of talk about where we sat and the roles. So I don't know whether it'd be helpful to kind of have a list of people, because there's some new faces here today that I don't know, to see whether, where they sit within the fostering teams and kind of what influence they have over budgets or anything. Because I sit within the team, so I've got my line manager is budget responsible. So anything that I put forward, she can make a decision on. So it'd be interesting just to find out what everyone else's roles are with regard to that when we're planning events and things.
Flintshire has said that they've got recruitment roles and they're not by the comms team, so they must sit in social services. So again.
Forgetting that button. If I do a sort of template maybe and send that around and people can complete that, and then we have some idea of roles, responsibilities, where people sit, the access to the budgets, would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
So Flintshire has said they sit within the team and manage the recruitment budget, and we have skills within the team. So again, the performer would probably be really helpful to find out what's going on.
Are we done on terms of reference, or is there anything else anybody'd like included?
Next items around the core offer for fostering.
Okay, so in the previous meeting, the core offer for foster carers in Wales was discussed, and it was agreed to explore this as an agenda item at this meeting, for the future meeting, and consideration to be given to inviting RDM's input for this work also. So myself and Sue, obviously here representing the RDMs, I can speak for in terms of the work going on in Gwent. We've just had a sort of a regional Gwent meeting prior to this meeting, and we're looking at developing a regional core offer. Obviously, we know that will vary in terms of what local authorities can provide, but the sort of an overarching core offer. So, for example, you have access to psychological support. Now, what that psychological support might look like in each authority might be different, but it's going into our regional core offer. And as a group of regional development managers, we're also looking at how much of that can translate then into a national core offer. I think we're probably at the stage that we're still mapping that out, aren't we? Mapping out, what's happening regionally and nationally. We're also talking in the Gwent area about enhancing that core offer as well, and looking at taking a presentation maybe to corporate parenting boards in terms of what everybody in the authority can offer to children looked after to improve our core offer to recruit foster carers. So I don't know if anybody wants to sort of jump in and talk about what they're doing in their regions or areas about their core offer.
In Mid and West Wales, we're in a very similar position. I'm about to go to corporate parenting panel in the coming months to talk about this mapping exercise across the region in terms of core offer and how we can align our offers across the region. So just waiting on a decision from heads of service and cabinet members then, but we are heading in that direction.
Anyone else? Any updates about core offer locally, regionally? No, is that something, I think maybe the RDMs, we are working on that so we can feedback to this meeting any future development and work with regards to that. Is that okay?
There's something come through on YouTube, so I'll just read it out. We've written a regional proposal for a council tax discount in North Wales for each LA to take their relevant management. This has been implemented in Anglesey. Discount.
No, already implemented in Anglesey, yeah.
Anything else on the core offer?
I think what the action was for RDMs to consider the best way to take this forwards, and we need to be feeding back to regionally and also nationally to this meeting.
Great. I think we've got Gareth now talking about the really exciting VR headsets. Do you need to get something on the screen because we can make that happen?
No, I think we discussed them with you guys earlier in the year, in April. I've just brought along a couple today just for everyone to have a look at. I think there was a few faces who were in that meeting. It was a project that was led, just for those of you who don't know, the CLAR team within Rhondda and Taff Council developed a short video using virtual reality technology to sort of essentially develop a sort of a day in the life of a child looked after, so look at their experiences in terms of sort of seeing everything from their perspective. And it was done as a part of a CLAR-friendly schools scheme that's being rolled out across RCT and Bertha now. But from a fostering perspective, we found it really useful to sort of take that along to recruitment events and things. And there was a video on YouTube that I think we shared at an earlier meeting in April, which both of you guys attended. Yeah, it was an NFF meeting rather than a marketing meeting. So I've just brought along a couple of headsets today. It's not particularly interactive, but certainly for those of you who are interested in having a little look, it's a 6-7 minute video that's sort of fully immersive. And the team, we work with an agency in Cardiff called Orchard, who I've got details for. And you're all more than welcome to sort of have a look at that and sort of get a better understanding of how that worked, and whether, you know, there was quite a lot of conversation in that meeting around, you know, other local authorities felt it would be relevant for them, and something of interest to sort of look at and taking forward. So yeah, there's a couple of headsets there for you to sort of have a trial of later on, if of interest. I'm not sure we probably need to find the link for the video now on screen. It's probably, you know, it's really something that's immersive that people can have a look at as and when they want to, really.
We can put it up on screen if you've got a link. Yeah.
Yeah, bear with me. I'm going to link to hand, but I can certainly get one quite quickly.
Yeah, great, that's fine.
Great. I don't know if you want to move on to the next sector.
Yeah.
I'll come back on it. Yeah.
Could you help with that, please, Alex? When we've got the link, we'll just get it on the screens and everyone can watch it who's watching on YouTube or in the room.
I was going to say, if people want to do what you know, the fully immersive experience as well, maybe afterwards when you know we're having a sort of lunch, maybe that could be
I'm not
people could
off, so
look
I
at
think,
it,
you know,
and ask any
people can have a look at
questions.
it. Yeah, no problem.
Fabulous, great.
The next item's around retention and recruitment strategies.
I think from some notes I've got here, I think it was that those local authorities with recruitment and retention strategies, we're going to send those to Matt Clark of Narrative Edge. And I'm just asking whether sort of that's been done or whether that was everybody's understanding. They were going to be sent to inform the work that's happening on a sort of national level. Has that happened? For the 4 authorities in Mid and West. Okay.
I think in the meeting we just talked about it'd be interesting just to see everyone's strategies, just to see if we were on a similar line or whether, you know, we were kind of miles away from each other. I don't remember the request to send them on to him at the meeting.
It was to circulate around the group.
Just the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has that happened? Have people circulated around the group? Have we seen recruitment and other people's recruitment and retention strategies? No?
I think it was, we didn't have that centre point at that
Does
time
it-
who would pull it all
Okay.
together. So I think we just talked about, Sarah wasn't sure. So we just kind of agreed to bring them all to the next meeting and we just discuss it from there.
Okay. So have people brought the recruitment and retention strategies with them? I tell you what, does everybody want to send them to me and I can circulate? So my email's on the address that everybody has for the meeting, Nina Kemp Jones. So if you send all the recruitment and retention strategies for your areas and RDMs, Sue, because obviously there's not everybody here, if we can ask for all the recruitment and retention strategies, then we can make sure we've got one for every local authority where there is one, and I will circulate them to the group.
Shall we just contact Matt and ask if he has received any as well?
I'm not sure whether the request, as you said, the original request was to Matt or whether it was for the group.
In the meeting, we're going to share it as a group. I think what we were thinking about is where Matt is with his work, how that would fit into maybe our existing strategies, or whether it would be something that we're already doing within our strategies, and we just mirror the suggestions from Matt. But I haven't heard anything from him on how the groups went and the qualitative and quantitative information.
There's a meeting tomorrow about the national marketing work stream, and the RDMs have asked for what feedback we are able to give to everybody in terms of that meeting. And one of the things I had, one of the questions I sort of had to ask was how aware are people of the Narrative Edge works that's going on at a national level, and have they seen, you know, the reports that Matt has written or any of the presentations? No. So again, I'll check when I'm in that national meeting tomorrow about sharing. I'm sure it will be fine, and I can circulate with those documents. I can circulate the work that's been done so far in terms of that, if that will be helpful.
Yeah, I think we were just talking about, what the strapline was going to be and what the narrative behind it was going to be really, and whether that would link with the strategy that we plan for as this group then, really.
Yeah, the work I think has recently been taken to Welsh Government, so there's nothing confirmed yet. It's just Matt was commissioned to undertake a piece of work. Obviously he's come up with recommendations, but nothing has been confirmed yet as far as I'm aware, but the meeting tomorrow will update on that. So then, we'll be able to, I think the RDMs will be able to update everybody then in their regions when they so.
Just a quick one on that. Might it be an idea to get Matt along to the meeting in November? Because I think things will be a bit further along then. And I think it might be a really useful time. I don't know if anything is planned before that to sort of roll out to everyone. But if not, getting Matt along then would probably be quite useful, I think.
Yeah, good idea. I'll put that as a request. I can ask Matt that.
Flintshire has said that they'd be interested in the chosen story. So, again.
Yeah, I think it started out with 4, didn't it? And then it was narrowed down to 2. So it was like local permanence. There was 4 different, and there was narrative behind them all, stories behind them all. And then it was narrowed down through focus groups. And then there's a focus group with foster carers as well, looking at the national sort of advertising brand, if that were to happen. And I know after the meeting tomorrow, there's hopefully going to be I think just one further group to narrow down, and then the sort of final sort of brand or recommendations for brand will be available. But like I said, we'll know more at the meeting tomorrow.
Have you got the link, Gareth, for your thing?
Not yet.
Okay, is there anything else on recruitment and retention strategies? Any other comments or anything anybody wants to add about recruitment and retention strategies? Does everybody have, local authorities have current up-to-date recruitment strategies? Because no.
My role is a new role for Bridgend, so I'm currently writing one, but I don't have one yet. So it will be interesting to see everybody else's, really, to see that we're on the sort of right road and everything. I have contacted Swansea and they've sent me theirs. But yeah, it would be interesting to see everybody else's as well.
Would you expect the recruitment strategy and retention strategy to be done by the fostering team or by the communications team, or a combination of?
My experience has been that that's usually undertaken by the placement team. But I think, again, it goes back to sort of maybe relationships and using the performance information, because I think obviously your performance information should be informing, your recruitment targets and your recruitment strategies. So I think even though the responsibility, my understanding has always been that responsibility lies with the placement teams, I think to be able to work together and have, access to the performance information and for the placement team and communications to work together on that is really important, really, is what I think, and what I'm hoping to promote in our region. Okay, nothing else on recruitment and retention strategies? Because we've talked a bit about performance information to aid recruitment. Is anybody having access to fostering performance information to be able to inform sort of communication, marketing? You are in, yeah, okay.
I think being based in the team is really helpful, because I can access the systems and run stats then as and when we need them, really. But I know there is kind of a wider performance strategy being introduced for fostering, which we haven't had before. Frontline teams have always had lots of performance indicators to measure kind of initial visits and announced visits and things. But I know that they're introducing ones for fostering, so that would be a really good way of us gauging how much interest we have and how long assessments are taken and that kind of thing.
So there is a national fostering framework performance information for fostering, and we're now in the 3rd year of collecting that information. So it's like I said earlier, I wouldn't say it's completely 100% accurate, but we have finally got some sets of data now for fostering, which we haven't ever previously had, and we are able to compare. There is on the national level, there is a task and finish group this summer that is looking at the framework, because it's been in place now for 3 years, but it does need, I think, some refinement, and there's a task and finish group looking at the best options of how to move forward with the performance information. But we've certainly just been talking in Gwent this morning about how important we feel it is for communications to have sight of that performance information and to work with the placement teams around that performance information in terms of targeting the recruitment. And obviously they mostly, in a lot of cases, hold the budget, whereas, you yourselves have the expertise in probably most effective ways of using that budget. So we were sort of talking around that issue in Gwent and seeing if we can sort of marry those up and improve the communication there.
Were there any actions or anything for any of us around that? I don't know if you want us to do a sort of round table around how things are going generally, or do you want us to do that in a different meeting?
No, we can do that, can't we, under sort of any other business. But in terms of actions for performance information, I don't know what do people think the best way of obtaining that is? Is it for yourselves, if you're not having that information, to be asking your placement team, can we have access, or can we meet to discuss this? And can we, can you bring the performance information with you to the meeting so that we can work together on our targets and our campaigns based on the performance information, or for the RDMs to sort of help with that? How do people want to take that forwards?
I think from my perspective, when the RDMs are sort of pulling that information together, if that's circulated, properly to everyone in this forum, as well as just between the 6 of you guys, that would be a really useful starter. Certainly, we can all sort of see where the rest of the country is going then, and if there are similar issues, then obviously we know who the sort of people are to sort of go and have those more relevant marketing conversations with them. If, for example, if the RCT performance figures are very similar to the ones in Swansea, then I know who the person, how are you coping with those sorts of issues? And
I think it'd probably be interesting to have it as a continuous agenda item, maybe, just to see peaks and troughs. And you said about your busiest times are January and after foster care fortnight. I think a lot of us probably will agree with that's our busy times as well, but it'd be interesting to know if people have peaks just before Christmas or during Easter holidays. So the performance indicators, I think, be really helpful for us.
Yeah, I don't know if every local authority goes down into that depth, because that depth isn't on the NFF framework, but certainly in terms of sharing performance information locally, that won't be a problem, and I don't think regionally that would be a problem, but nationally the information is anonymised. So we don't, the information that we have as RDMs for the region, that it depends on your heads of service in your region as to whether they agree for that to be shared across the region, and if they do, that's fine. But nationally, we can't at the moment, I don't believe, unless we obviously access permission for that, share all that information nationally.
In terms of Mid and West Wales, I think we're going to have to go back to heads of service, because a couple of our counties haven't got support from the comms teams. So it's about setting up some working relationships and looking at agenda priorities. And so I think that is something we will have to take back to our heads of service across the region in terms of the working together in the future more tightly then.
In the future as well, under the new regs, is quarterly reporting required, and that's around resources. So we're looking as well nationally and regionally at in Gwent regionally as well. We're looking at the reporting format for that, because in terms of the resources, that will really help us in terms of recruitment, in terms of how many foster carers have left this quarter, how many children have we had coming into foster care this quarter, what are the ages of those children. If we can look at a format for that nationally, then that will also help, and that can be shared regionally then, obviously, if heads of services agree, or certainly locally. So that's something else that might help with that. Anything else under performance information?
I just wanted to add, I think it would be key to have that information to hand from a publication point of view, if there was any information. So if we have, the press broadcast, they are our friends in relation to this, really, and we should be utilising them, and they will be wanting that information, whether that be from a regional point of view or from a national point of view. And I think if we can kind of clock what information is broadcastable or utilised for the press, that would be really handy as well. Like have like our own little fact sheet that we can just use.
So, sorry, it would be just certain information that would be able to be released. So could you give an example of what type of thing you were thinking of in terms of that?
So potentially how many children are looking for homes. That's the kind of information that they'd probably build in on a wider scale. And to have that, I suppose if we're having people come to us and asking for that on a national and a regional basis, obviously we can pull the regional figures ourselves or local authority figures. It's handy that we're all kind of on the same page, that whatever information we're putting out there, it's consistent.
Yeah, I think historically that's been led, sort of Foster Network really seemed to have those sort of stats and information, and then they issue that, and then we sort of utilise that, whereas really we should be taking the lead on and owning that data.
Yeah, I just want to second that. I would absolutely suggest that, because otherwise they are utilising other people to get that information, and what we're trying to do is bring people here, not elsewhere.
Okay, so I think that would need agreement then on which parts of the performance framework we're going to use and how we're going to get that message then across, in those terms and I think that probably would need some heads of service sign off in terms of being able to use that information and put that publicly, but that's something that regionally the RDMs can seek that from their heads of service.
I think from what Kelly's saying though, that's the benefit of an all Wales number, because it's more campaignable, it's bigger, and it shows we're working together. Because you're right, I understand that some heads of service, if they've got a problem in terms of the number of children that need to be placed, or they've got a problem with the number of children currently with IFAs, they don't want the light shone on one specific council necessarily, or any sort of compare or contrast. Whereas I think the benefit of us working together is that it's not about one local authority has got more of a problem than another. Our position can be we're working together to help all of these children, and we want them, but we have got the local regional campaigns as well, so that more children can still go to school in the same place if that's appropriate, and those type of things. So it's I think if there's any sensitive data around specific areas, we don't necessarily need to share that. But if we have got the big numbers around the challenge we've got, I know that Social Care Wales are just doing the We Care campaign they did earlier in the year, and they talked about that, didn't they? The number of carers we need nationally, and then we just worked around that in terms of the regional and local stories.
So if the RDMs were to pull together some sort of national messages from the PI framework and around sort of maybe the challenges and different messages, and then we could circulate those for the agreement of this group and get agreement from heads of service that that's what we can do with that information, and then we can circulate them and have sort of feedback on them before we publish them. Is that
Yeah, I think it's really important for us as local authorities to lead that conversation, with the public, rather than it being any other organisations related to fostering. I think that we have that information, and then we pass it on to others to sort of make newsworthy. Whereas really, there's a forum of people here who are more than capable of doing that ourselves. So it's allowing us to lead that conversation.
Sorry, Flint's just sent a question. So Flint have said, how confident are we that different local authorities are completing the NFF returns consistently in the same way, so that it can be compared accurately across Wales?
I think that we are on the third year. People are understanding the information better, and they are getting better at reporting it. We, as RDMs, do quality assure some of that information. I'm not saying it's 100% accurate, but we've also got a task and finish group, as I said, over the summer to look at the framework, to look at ironing out any inconsistencies that may still be there, to review it, to ensure that it's fit for purpose, and to see how we want to move forwards with that. But I think, you know, if we're talking about for what we're talking about now, we're talking about key messages, really, not actually the finite detail, but the key messages in terms of recruitment. And I think that, you know, I'm confident that the NFF information will provide the key messages, even if it's not entirely 100% accurate, and there are still some inconsistencies in the way people are interpreting data. I think from what we interpret as RDMs and from our analysis, because we also, you know, have to provide analysis reports on that information, I think I would be confident in the Gwent area that the key messages are right, even though it might not be 100% accurate in terms of figures.
I agree with that, Nina. It will have, however, sort of accurate key messages, which is important for this work. Yeah. Yeah.
Anything else on performance information for anybody?
I've got the link from Gareth now. Should we show that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Alex, could you help me work it, please?
Abby, just before we show that, is there any latest reports, information on people's propensity to foster? I'm just conscious that probably I'm still basing some of our activity based on perhaps reports I had 2 or 3 years ago on people's sort of likelihood to foster. Is there any work nationally currently on why people are fostering?
I'm not aware of any, unless anybody else is. I think, presumably, talking about the Fostering Networks report, that's a couple of years old now, in terms of the propensity of people who want to foster. I'm not currently aware. So, are you currently aware of any more research or anything going on in terms of that, apart from, you know, the national work stream, what Matt is doing, with the reports, of which I've said, you know, that I can circulate around. So there is some information in there, but I don't know of any other sort of major piece of research other than the Fostering Networks most recent one, unless anybody else wants to comment.
I think the Foster Network have released something this year, haven't they, which is more about case studies following on from that pioneers and that study that have been done. And really all it does, it reinforces the research that they did in 2014 with some case studies of best practice from across Wales. So it might be worth trying to catch up on that.
I suppose in follow-up to that then, has anyone created any personas or sort of, you know, any products are based on personas of people likely to foster?
No, data pending on that. So the systems that we've got in place in our local authorities have made it quite difficult to access that information, because I've been in post since April and that was one of the first things I wanted to do. But accessing the information that allows you to properly build those personas is proving challenging.
Because I'm just thinking that personas could almost, I think, probably be something we could all share, and they'd become national products. So it would be an easy win if there's some that exist out there already, but if not, it might be something we want to create as part of our strategy.
We'll go to the link now, Gareth's link for the VR headset. Okay, while we're setting up that, is there any other business, or is there from any feedback from anybody that would like to sort of talk about any new initiatives that they're trying within their region or within their authority?
It'd just be interesting to find out how everyone's foster care fortnight went and what kind of things people did within that time, so we can just share good practice, really.
So would you like to start with Neath Port Talbot?
We didn't do anything this year very different to what we've done in previous years. We did just being more available outside of working hours. We found that worked well for us. A Saturday in our local shopping centre was well attended. A lot of people saw us there who all came down and took information. But we've noticed since Foster Care Fortnight, and I know probably a lot of people will know this, is like, because it's a national campaign, people do get, into that, and then we do get more inquiries. And we've just changed our online inquiry form, and that's working really well for us. We're having, whereas before we were asking people just to email with and over, now we're asking them to fill in the form with a bit more details about what type of fostering they're interested in and where they heard from us. So that's working really well. So that's one thing that we introduced just before Foster Care Fortnight. And that worked well for us. So just to find out what other people are using, really. Yeah, directly into my email. Yeah, and I pick that up then, and either, we've asked people what their preference is to be contacted back, because a lot of people are working, so they cannot, when I ring, I say the phone was going to take about 20 minutes, and they're like, oh, I'm at work at the moment, I can't possibly. So we found that we've been texting people, and then some of the team who work longer hours, they've been ringing them after work and just having conversations via email, just keeping that link with them, really, and allowing them to contact us when it's best for them, so instead of us kind of inconveniencing them, really. But it's worked well coming straight into my inbox, and we've had an acknowledgement email as well set up. So I think you just need that one person then who's going to be filtering them out there, and even if it's just the response to say thank you for your email and you forward it on, then rather than going into to the abyss, really.
Mid and West Wales, we had a regional event, a recruitment event, and all the 4 counties attended, the managers and staff and foster carers, to raise awareness. And what we're finding is that when we use our mentors and our foster carers and sort of sons and daughters as part of the recruitment campaign, it's far more powerful than actual staff, the staff speaking. We had open evenings, open days. We took over a shopping centre for a week. We found that so community events, we always have a mixed bag of events. We just don't rely on our website. We recently launched our regional website, and also, Karen, we changed our online application form, which has been more positive for us. But just lots of different eggs in different baskets, but hoping that the online our facility is going to assist us a bit more, really, in recruitment.
One thing we have tried this year is one of the girls in our team is part of like a triathlon group. So that's an area which we haven't used before, with regard to kind of promotion of fostering. So that was really good. We went down to the Aberafan seafront where they were doing their swim and run, and that was really well attended. And we took our mascot down there as well, and he had really good press. So it's just those areas really, Julie's new to the team, so I was chatting to her, and then I found out she was part of the Harriers. Got chatting, and they said, they're always welcome, and they were really supportive of fostering. So they allowed us to take our banner down, and we're going to be kind of doing leaflets within the presentation bags and things like that. So one thing was what was quite interesting is that all of the participants have to have a number on them, but they also have to write their contact details and emergency numbers on that number. So for next time now, I'm definitely taking pens, and pens are going in the pack for everyone, because everyone had to write on that day. So it was just though that was a new area for us. So, and they've got a couple of things going on, and they've got a big event then in November, the Richard Burton race, which is really well attended apparently. So that's our new area. So if anyone fancies running.
Yeah, I think Neil just spoke about that earlier, didn't he, in our meeting about, targeting those sort of mass participation events and events, like those where there's quite a lot of sort of 10K events going on as well, where people could be sponsored, to wear the T-shirt with the fostering on, so that, that lots of people are, like, going to see it. And yeah, so anybody else been Foster Care Fortnight want to talk about?
We had, there was Puff Call 10K run yesterday, and about 10 people from BCBC wore fostering T-shirts for us. So that was quite good. And they do park runs down there as well, so they're going to wear them every weekend for us. We just try to get out and about a bit more and be more visible during Foster Care Fortnight, which I think we haven't done in the past. So we went to lots of different events within the community, and we took over Asda for the day, the local Asda, and we did a spin-a-thon, so that members of the team were spinning all day to raise money for a local special needs nursery that, a lot of our looked after children do attend. So that worked quite nicely, and they've then invited us to their fundraiser in the summer, and so just making those links within the community, I think, to make us more visible and out there are pretty effective. So.
Didn't actually get to do anything. But from my background, actually, I've done a lot of community events in previous jobs, and I think everything that you just said is absolutely fabulous, but making sure that we're drip feeding them all across the year, not just hitting them hard in those fortnights. I think for a lot of people who will be interested in fostering, they need to be seeing that message again and again and again. And actually, for people that I know, didn't really understand the issue, didn't really understand how easy it is to get into fostering, and actually we need to be talking about it face to face rather than just publicising it. So I've already done a lot with the foster carers that we've got of just events that they go to with family, grandchildren. So things like scout groups, they do jamborees going across to those. So actually they're not all going to be your target audience, but it's going to be provoking that conversation, and they might go away and have discussions with people. And like places like Asda, they will take us for free if you work with those community people. So actually going every other month to create that visible face would be beneficial rather than just waiting for the fortnight.
Actually, speaking about Asda, they're a really good sort of brand to link in with, because they've got a community champion in every store. And they've provided us with a lot of things following that fundraiser. So they're willing to provide tea, coffee, cakes for any sort of fostering event that we've got on. So we do like monthly coffee mornings for our carers, so they provide everything for that. They've also wanted to fund the Children's Christmas Party this year. And what else did they want to do? It's just gone from the top of my head now. But there's like quite a few things. Oh, they wanted to be the children in Bridgend to be the Christmas present appeal. So they would like to, whoever donates Christmas presents, they said they'd like to give them to the looked after children of Bridgend. So they've got loads of things that they will link in with others about.
So what did you say? Every Asda store has a community champion.
Most supermarkets, Morrison's do, Sainsbury's do as well. They'll all
Tesco are really hard to get into.
I know this from a different point of view, but Asda is very proactive, so they are very good to use.
Also, I've tried in the past using Costa. That's something that I want to try out, is actually just having a tabletop during Costa mornings. So you're not going to always get that footfall, but actually building that conversation, people will go and be a bit more casual and a bit more up for a proper conversation rather than just doing the weekly shop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sorry, it was just a query really. You guys mentioned sort of the busy times of year traditionally have been May around Fostering Fortnight. Is that because that's when the central comms and marketing teams that are working on this stuff have that focus? Or is there anyone in the room that's had an always-on approach and have a different view on when those busy times are? That was just something that I don't know, because I'm sort of new in post and dedicated for fostering, so we're trying to have an always-on approach. But all I keep hearing is, it's busy in May, it's busy September, and sort of January time. But is there anyone who's been doing it sort of consistently all the way through the year? And that is naturally when people are more interested in it because of various things that are going on in our schools and all the rest of it, or if that is just because that's when the sort of central teams who've been involved up to this point have been able to focus on it. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. That we've used in Carmarthenshire particularly, I can speak about, but we have an always on approach, and I know Powys do the same.
Yeah.
We do it in East Talbot as well. My role is purely recruitment, so it's kind of always everything you do, social media. I think it's because of the national campaign in May, everyone is saying the same message.
Yeah.
The comms team know it's coming up, so they do prioritise it. But it's constant, and like you said, you don't know who's going to be thinking about fostering. You don't know who's going to be in Asda or Costa at that time, who has been thinking about it for a while, but just hasn't got that number, or maybe not the confidence. But I find definitely the face-to-face stuff is so much better, because people sometimes feel like the questions that they're going to ask online are a bit silly, or they don't feel that they could just ring up and ask a few questions. Whereas when you see them in a neutral environment in a supermarket, they do come up to you and they start chatting, or they know people who are fostered, and I think that the face-to-face stuff is really powerful. But again, it's constant throughout the year.
I think that's that sustainability of that face-to-face as well.
It is.
People that you'll stop and ask that have never thought about it. It's not the right time, but because you've planted that seed, because you've had that really fabulous conversation in 2 years' time when we have fostering fortnight, they're going to be the people that inquire.
Yeah. It would be interesting to know from the group as well what kind of support that they have for these events. I know we say about the face-to-face being so powerful, but it's difficult to get staff members to support you, so I just wondered what everyone's views were on that.
That's an issue for Mid and West in terms of staff. We haven't got a dedicated recruitment officers. Our recruitment officers are involved with assessment of foster carers and training as well, pre and post-approval training. So we haven't got dedicated officers such in Carmarthenshire. I know that Pembrokeshire has, Powys I believe has as well, and Ceredigion have not. So it is an issue in terms of resources. But going back, we use a lot of sort of community events, but also online. We've been in touch with Sir David Powys Police and the fire service, and they've got across all staff screens now. They've got our mascot and our telephone number, so that and the health boards as well have put our messages out. No.
Because we've been approached in the past, we've been approached by the police where they do this magazine, and it's an advertising thing. So I'm just thinking with the screens is maybe a good thing, because they've got like their intranet, haven't they? So it's just another way to get the message out there. Flintshire have said that summer is very quiet in Flintshire.
Our libraries, leisure centres, we put our adverts out there as a free of charge. So we're not being charged for any local authority sort of venue either.
Because we go to things like Ask Show, so we'll do an event, but then we'll have a drop-in session, say a few weeks after, so you kind of always sort of push in, drop in and face-to-face sort of thing.
I know Cardiff, speaking to them, they've done a lot of work with their hubs and actually upskilling the staff that work at the hubs. So they've got materials there, but if people are then looking at those materials, the hub staff have been trained to have that conversation and direct them to inquire. So that might be worth it as well. And if you're dropping at leisure centres, actually having a conversation with the staff that work there, so they're adding that value to those people.
Your drop-in centres, are they managed by the comms team or the fostering members as staff?
We sort of market it, but then the fostering team attend, and they all have that to sort of provide as much information as people need. We tend to have our drop-in sessions at kind of the hotels, so it's really nice for people to go along to.
And there's no cost for you to go to those hotels then?
There is a cost, which is built into the budget for the marketing. So there will be a few of that. But all the ideas are fantastic.
We found the approach of booking hotels has improved the sort of seriousness a person's got when they come to the sessions. I think because we tend to, book somewhere quite nice and we say, come and join us for a cup of tea and a piece of cake, people are coming dressed like it's a job interview, and they're the people that have really, really made the decision. We find that the depth sort of always on chat to us is really good for the awareness driving, but given resource constraints of guiding people through the process, we're sort of having less people, but people that are actually becoming approved faster. So, yes, it's been really interesting. Yeah. 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 We did have a really good response for our January campaign. Anecdotally, I've heard from someone that works in Birmingham that in January you tend to get a high volume, but the chances of those people actually completing are low. I hadn't appreciated that. So I think, whereas our May activity, we've had some people that are currently with IFAs wanting to come back to us that have come to our sessions. So if you're talking about kind of quality leads in that respect, it was actually our May campaign. I don't know if it was because of the fact that the press and everybody's talking about fostering during that climate, but it quite interesting, the distinction between the different people, and the propensity for them to actually complete the process. We find the bespoke sessions, it is worth paying a bit of money for some other people to have a meeting. So we do more of a two-stage. So we will do things like the Costas, or we'll be at the fireworks with our high-vis jackets on, handing out the leaflets. But as we mentioned, we then have a separate drop-in session. Might be interesting for us to test something like your online forms, see if that would work in the same way. Because at the moment we're doing kind of twice the work in a way. We're doing the Big Splash awareness piece to come to a separate session for that conversation. But be interesting to see if if you've got a form that's working well, if we can go straight to an appointment. You know, I think we should test that. See, because we're almost having 3 stages really. The awareness one.
In research, though, people's mindsets go through those processes.
Yeah.
You have to build that awareness before they'll even get to an interest stage. So I think we've got to be careful about taking one stage away and actually have what you do is fantastic, and actually that will help funnel in the awareness building. And hopefully by continuing with the awareness, you're going to build those quality leads. You've got more coming through that tunnel, more to those drop-in events.
We've started having an open evening after we've gone out and done the initial assessment. So it'll be 1-to-1 initial assessment, and then before we invite people on the Skills to Foster, we invite them to an open evening. So the whole team has an opportunity to meet with them. They have an opportunity to meet with a lot more staff, a range of staff, and you've got, a take then from other staff in the team about suitability of applicants, and also whether the applicants actually wish to pursue this career, So it's another level that we've added in there.
So that's before Skills to Foster?
Just before Skills to Foster.
And would that be quite soon after a dropping session?
No.
It
So
wouldn't,
it's maybe a little
yeah.
while after, yeah.
Flintshire has sort of commented and said, more targeted online activity is successful in Flintshire, and they've been focusing on search engine optimization by creating web content that gives advice to the questions people are asking on Mumsnet, for example. And they said that they agree with the approach prior to Skills. We give them insight to issues covered in training. So they are quite probably fully aware of what they're kind of signing up to and going to get involved in. So, yeah, that's cool.
I was just going to say, has anybody else worked with kind of smaller scale groups, like smaller fostering networks like Mumsnet or anything like that, to see what issues they found through the recruitment process? I was just wondering if you had information to feed back. Because again, that's kind of where people are driven to. They might not necessarily know, as a mum, they might want to go to those kind of networks as opposed to a council website, which sometimes could probably look a little bit scary on the outset. They want kind of companions that have gone through it, and I just wondered if any, or even like fostering groups, where kind of just wondering if anyone else had utilised those at all.
I think in Monmouthshire they've gone back. The foster carers have got their own kind of separate little group which they meet at, which is like sort of a coffee morning and things. And I know the team has actually worked with them, haven't they, to kind of expand on sort of what's missing with training or what could get better. We also did a thank you event last summer and invited all of our foster carers, as many as we could get there. And again, as part of that process, if they were happy to talk to us about what training is good, what inspired you to be a foster carer. It was all, we did a little video at the end. It was only used internally because obviously they just felt it wasn't appropriate for them to go out on public. But it was really useful, and it was really, an insight for the team to say, well, they were saying, there's a barrier to training because you do the training course in this location, but I've got to get from this, and it's not allowing me enough time, or things to do with childcare, So it was a really good learning experience, and the thank you event was really nice as well. So it was just trying to say, we really appreciate what you do, and it was only a small gesture. There was a pot of flowers, but then there was people there who had been fostering for 25 years, so it was really making a fuss and just saying, we do really care about you, and thanks very much. So yeah, things like that are really good to consider, aren't they?
Sorry. I think it is important that representatives from the comms go there as well, because it's just about establishing those relationships as potential case studies. And, again, somebody from the fostering team might not be able to look beyond how we can potentially tell their stories to promote it. I think I've said this to Abby, I think fostering is very emotive, and you kind of need to sell the emotion side of it before you start selling the other sides of it. You need to really find out why people want to do it, because yes, obviously there's a financial benefit, but if you're in it for the wrong reason. So it's trying to make those relationships, because there is that trust element as well, and trying to establish really good relationships with them in order to be able to contact them in times of press and that kind of thing.
Interesting you say that. We had Liam from Comms team come to our annual awards back in October, and he was live tweeting from the event. And we've not had that before, because we've not had the ability, because we haven't got our own Twitter account. And there was a foster carer who celebrated 30 years, so that went out as a press release. And like you were saying about stats, press really love stats and figures and things like that. So you had to, we let them know how many children over that time that they've fostered and gone on to for their forever homes and those kind of things. But I think the social media side of having Liam there, who's got a different mindset, really, if you like, that worked quite well with Twitter. So that's interesting.
I think in the past as well, with Fostering Fortnight, I think it was last year, we used a guy who had been fostered himself, and he told his kind of story. And that was another really emotive and really powerful kind of way of getting the message across. We've done a couple of sort of video clips with Sam, one of our foster carers. She's awesome. She'll come and do a clip, and she'll do a radio ad, and she'll come to us show and talk to people. So it's, it's trying to build that relationship up with existing foster carers, for her to be an advocate then for everybody else. So yeah, that's really useful, that we've found good.
I think in sort of RCT and Merthyr, we've relied a lot on, within those recruitment events, to utilise the pioneer carers. So those guys have come along and given up their time to have those conversations, and that's always been really well received, because you're hearing it from the horse's mouth then. And we've actually got an event at the end of this month, which is sort of takes it away from, again, learnings from what you guys had suggested about using a hotel. So we're taking it away from some of those more sort of heavy footfall locations to somewhere that's, right, you're coming here to have a chat about fostering. We're not going to grab you on your way in. And we've been sort of promoting that over the last few weeks. And it was really a concept around sort of almost like a speed dating concept. So you can come in, it's your own time, there's no rush, but there's 5 people there, 4 of which are pioneers, existing carers. There's somebody from the fostering support team as well, and you can ask them whatever you want. They're just in a room, we'll sort of welcome them in. So I'll feed back to everyone on how that goes. I was just a little bit reticent around sort of, summer's really dead, blah, 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 blah. So okay, we're doing this the end of July, so maybe perhaps not the right time to do it, but, as a concept to sort of, because it was feedback that had come from speaking to our existing carers. So for those of you in central comms teams who aren't sort of quite close to carers, go along, meet them, have those conversations. It's informed so much content for social media, for our website, for myself. And also, one of the carers said, what I wanted before I started doing this, I just wanted to sit down in a room and ask a carer all the things that were always in around in my head. I was like, yeah, great. Let's do that then. So it's not, come here, have a presentation, and a bit too formal. It's really come along, there's 5 friendly faces, ask them what you want. and you go away from that event then knowing the things that perhaps you've been thinking about around fostering and haven't wanted to ask, and so yeah, it'll be interesting for us to sort of see how that works, and if it does work, potentially we'll do something more regularly digitally then with sort of Facebook Live or something along those lines with those guys moving forward then, if it is a format that's well received. So we'll feed back to all of you on that, but yeah.
We find boosting Facebook event pages works well. So given the seasonality might not be so great, perhaps put some money against. I would. That's worked for us. Just the week before, I don't know if anyone else does that. We do quite a lot of Facebook boosting.
Just quickly touching back on Fostering Fortnight from a national perspective, from my view, certainly personally, it didn't seem to have the same cut through. There were lots of other things going on, and I've read on a couple of forums with fostering where sort of other local authorities in England certainly have felt that having it in May for the fortnight, like I think one of the 2 weeks was Mental Health Awareness Week as well. At the time, the BBC were focusing really heavily on menopause awareness, so it didn't seem to have cut through. I can't think of any sort of stories nationally that were on the news. It didn't seem to have that same profile. So I know there's some conversations with Fostering Network now as do we change the time of year? So I don't know what everyone else's view was, whether you felt you had similar experiences, but just for us, it didn't seem to cut through nationally. We weren't seeing things on Welsh or national news around fostering around those times. Because I say there were 2 other events, sort of mental health awareness, and there was a load of menopause awareness stuff on the BBC at that time, and there was nothing around fostering.
What were other people's experiences of that? Did you notice that?
I was just going to second. I think anything that involves mental health, it's a good time to steer away any other publicity around that, because I know a lot of ITV has internal campaign policies that they have to commit to promoting that. So it is avoidable. I think May is a difficult time to lead on those kind of things if it is surrounding mental health, or any other like campaigns that maybe from the front we won't see, but any national campaigns like that, they're gonna, in relation to like mental health especially.
So is that something that needs to be taken forward with?
Yeah, I think if the RDMs can raise that with NFF and escalate that up to Fostering Network, there's a lot of chat on sort of various forums already, so I'd be surprised if somebody from Fostering Network wasn't looking at that.
Okay.
But potentially just, something to raise.
Just keeping it on the radar, yeah.
Or it's thinking about how those complementary messages are communicated out, because we know that there's a link between the mental health of some of our ACEs children, and it's perhaps just somebody thinking about the benefit of those messages combined as opposed to them being in solus. I think to go and change the date when we've had the date for a long time, perhaps it's not the date, perhaps it's the fact there just weren't the stories there. Yeah.
I think that may have been one of the issues with this year as well. I did feel that there was a strong theme for the Fostering Network this year.
Change your future.
Change your future. I didn't feel that there was a lot of stories behind that. If we'd known about Mental Health Week, perhaps we could have linked with partnership, did some partnership working with other companies, and done a story about a looked after child and how difficult it is for them when they leave care, and the mental health issues that they may be addressing, and then saying, here you go for mental health support, but here you come to be able to support that young person when they're in care. So it could have, could have been developed that way.
Sorry, news in from Flintshire. Fostering Fortnight was quiet again this year. They agree with the lack of national coverage, and you can't rely on Fostering Fortnight. Activity needs to be all year round. So what we've kind of been talking about, so they agree.
I think I was saying earlier though, we've got the numbers, we've got the children, and I don't think that was maximised in the fortnight. There was a few, the biggest things that I noticed online particularly were from Canon Cymru, were from the FCA. So there was Fostering Fortnight publicity, but not from the right channels. So, and I think there was definitely some local stuff in Wales Online from different counties, but actually we need to be, as a collective, on the news or in Wales Online. So forward thinking to next year, having those stats as a group and getting it out there before Callum Cymru do.
I don't think we noticed the other campaigns really, because we didn't do anything locally with mental health awareness nationally. There was nothing sort of put out from those teams either, but I think we didn't really generate any sort of comments. I know they did have their walks and drop-in sessions, and again they did town centres. I think they visited a few shops and had drop-ins, but I'm meeting with them tomorrow, to be honest. We haven't had a lot of feedback about that yet, so that's going to be tomorrow's discussions. But yeah, that's, I think, same as everyone really, quite quieter maybe than last year's events. Yeah.
I think what we were talking about with the awareness, if we've got a national article going out there, if we're talking on the news, then when they come and speak to us in Asda, they've already got that awareness, they've already got that interest. That's then when we're going to be able to create the desire without putting on a really expensive hotel event. So we need that backing on a big campaign, so that what we're trying to do locally is going to be much more beneficial than just running with our own little work.
Anything else before we move on to the link? No? Okay.
Just for people watching on YouTube, I'm just going to have to switch it across, so bear with me.
That's it.
Can I just, because they've just sent another comment. So they've said, with the predicted increase in inquiries following the national campaign, will the assessment capacity gap be addressed by this group? If not, which group will address this vital issue for success?
It's a piece of work that the regional development manager has been asked to do at the moment, looking at regional profiling and analysis of that, and looking at projections. So I think the assessment capacity will be part of that national work, is my understanding.
That's a good question for us from a Monmouthshire perspective, because we are starting to have conversations about delaying some of our campaigns for that reason. You know, because we can't be pushing too many in that the team can't cope with. So that's what we're looking at now, in terms of, ideally we want a constant certain number of carers going through the process at different times, but we are getting more peaks in certain activity. But of course a lot of that is driven from the fact that resource wise we're having more upweighting activity around times that we know work for us. But yeah, no, I totally agree with what the people from Flintshire are saying there. It's difficult then when there's only so much capacity to convert those people through. Gareth, could you please talk us through what that was that we were just looking at? We're just switching it back for people who are watching.
Okay, so that was a video that was developed by the Children Looked After team in RCT as part of a Clare Friendly Schools project that's happening. And that link is available on YouTube, which I'm sure has been sent out, but it doesn't really bring it to life. It was a sort of a virtual reality video that was done sort of to be fully immersive. So you can see the headset here. Essentially, you know, what they'll do with the guys. This is really to educate. It was initially to sort of go into schools and speak to teachers and staff in schools and say, look, these children are coming into your schools. You need to sort of understand where they're coming from and sort of have that better appreciation for what they've been through before they get there. So, you know, you pop this on and it is a sort of, wherever you look, full 360 immersive experience, and we found it to be really powerful. It's been really successful within educating teachers across the local authority about sort of how they need to sort of, I guess, make allowances for those children coming into the schools. But also for us from a recruitment point of view, we've used it at a couple of events where people have sort of come along and had a look at that, and it really does bring it to life. I think it's probably powerful enough watching it on a TV screen as we have this morning, but when you've got that on, it really does get you. And that's been something, you know, it was shared at an earlier meeting, and I think a few other local authorities sort of then went off and sort of thought about slightly different applications for it within a fostering recruitment as well. And also in the fostering support team, so potentially using similar sort of technology to look at sort of, you know, we talked about things, I think it was, you know, 360 views of foster carers' homes, so that children who are being placed can have a look online before they get there and sort of see the environment where they're going to be placed, so it sort of removes some of that anxiety as well. So I guess, you know, it was just one sort of really good application of technology that we've used that was not initially for the fostering team, but as a byproduct has been really, really useful for us. And, you know, if anybody wants any details of it, I can email them all later on them and sort of the agencies that we work with and things, so, yeah.
Okay. Any questions for Gareth? And is it okay if over lunch that we
please do.
People are able to sort of have that experience?
Yeah, go for
it. Great, okay. Any questions for Gareth? Any other business before we conclude? Anything anybody like to raise?
I wonder if it's worth us just mentioning the idea of a joint New Year thing. Can we talk about that? So in our Gwent session, we were talking about how brilliant it would be if we all did a, you know, sort of New Year's resolutions push together. So in Gwent, we've all said that we'd love to do that. But, you know, it would be brilliant if we did in all Wales, you know, make this a year. You're going to make a difference to a child's life, and all join together, because then we could all, you know, without the overlay of something like foster care fortnight, we could try and see if it works for January, because we know it's in the time when people will be thinking about it, and it'd be brilliant if we could all get together and just decide that from the 1st January we're all going to push out some really positive messages, you know, and as far as possible do a bit of a media takeover just within the channels that we can control. It could be quite exciting.
We talked about, because it being 2020, didn't we, having the 20 good reasons to foster. Yeah. So we're looking at the sort of placement teams and RDMs coming up with sort of those reasons to promote 2020. You know, this is the year that you can change a child's life, and here's 20 good reasons to foster. But if that could be national, as you said, that would, you know, make a, you know.
I was thinking about, Nina, the learning and development work as well, whether that might be something that we could look at.
In what context?
Well, in terms of taking on the expertise of the comms people to sort of promote that message really across Wales, because we're looking at a launch, aren't we, in October now. Oh, yeah, sorry. The NFF, we've looked at a new sort of learning and development, sort of training framework for foster carers across Wales, and I think it might be it might be a good thing to promote it, as best we can.
So are people aware of the learning and development framework for foster carers, the post-approval learning and development framework? Yeah, it's still in draft at the moment. It hasn't been signed off yet by heads of service, I don't believe, but we hopefully should find that out this week. It promotes an all-Wales approach to post-approval learning and development for foster carers, and it links to the all-Wales induction framework for health and social care and the qualification. But we're regionally, the regional development managers are looking at how that is going to be implemented in the region. And as Sue said, we've got a national launch for that we're planning for October, which we're in the very early stages of planning that. But yeah, I suppose it would be good, as Sue's raised, thinking about how we could use channels to communicate and promote awareness and raise awareness of that. So is that something that anybody could have sort of got any ideas about what we could do about that nationally, regionally?
I think it'd be a really good idea if we could promote that to get the professionals thinking about fostering as a career, not so much stay at home. It's something you do when you haven't got those expertise, but linking in and using it as a promotion tool, I suppose, by saying you can further your education if you do come on board as fostering with professionals. You'll be recognised through this professional body, and I think that would be probably a good recruitment tool for us for the higher end, should I say, of fostering.
Is that going to sit outside? Is that just for local authorities?
Yes.
Because potentially that. No.
We haven't clarified that yet, so we're waiting for confirmation on that. We would like it to be a local authority tool.
Because I think that's a really strong point of difference then, isn't it, from some of the independent organisations? So, yeah.
Ideally, that's what we were looking towards. However, as Nina said, we need a bit of clarification around it.
Just going back to the sort of 2020 and 20 reasons to foster, if we put that round ourselves, I'll put that round to the group here, but obviously we put that round to the placement teams, and we'll probably come up with more than 20 reasons then, but we can filter them down into the 20 best reasons. Is that an okay idea?
I think we should ask our foster carers. I think if we come up with the list and we could do some engagement with them around what they think the 20 reasons are, I think I don't think we'd get it right. We'd be like, oh, that's going to look great in a press release or an ad, but I think it's the actual people that I think we need their help with that.
I think if we could potentially take it one step further and actually use them to deliver that message, if we're getting those ideas from those carers, if they could be the ones to launch it, that would be massive.
I was saying that on social, it'd be lovely if we had children doing it, get face-to-camera clips from lots of gorgeous children explaining, because they're who it's all about, as well as the grown-ups that we keep talking to. But I don't know, we'd have to stage it, but it'd be quite gorgeous, I think.
Just the child's voice and have images on the screen. That's always a good way of getting around it, by listening to real child and how they read it out, and then just have a visual then, so they're not actually on camera.
Yeah, or potentially, Nick, the Haribo approach, and
Or you could use a mix of foster carers and children, given the reasons, why it's good to foster, couldn't you? That would be really good, wouldn't it, if it's 2020, if it could be like a campaign for the whole of 2020, as we were talking about, wasn't it, earlier, and that it's a national message, and it's promoted nationally. So is that what we're hoping? That's what we can, we're going to aim for. People in sort of in agreement with that. Okay.
The only thing I would say is just feeding back to the assessment capacity. If we are going to do that, I think we've got the potential to do it really well. But I know from my experience, my team would not cope with that, and we wouldn't want to drip feed all these amazing messages and then them actually move on to IFAs because we haven't got capacity to hold it. So if we can have those discussions further.
That needs to be looked at first, doesn't it? Before we can, okay.
Could we do a 2020 tour? So rather than all of us promoting that message at one time, could we drip feed the message kind of through us all, but it's spanned within the year then, maybe?
This has no relation, but also just being mindful about events next year. It's the Olympics. Don't know how that ties in yet, but that was the first thing that came to my head. And it's just about trying to jump on that because, again, you're attracting those wider audiences. So just looking at other key events potentially that are wider than Foster Fortnight potentially, and just jumping on those bandwagons and seeing how we can utilise those events, really.
Anybody else got anything they'd like to raise?
Any other comments, Alex, on the YouTube? I don't know if there's any other.
Just going back to the learning and development framework, when that is finalised and signed off, so how people intend to promote that? What do people think would be the best ways of promoting awareness of that? How would people go about that?
If you could just send us a one-pager about what it is and what the brief is, and we can come up with, proposals. To us, I don't know enough about it to specifically talk about the detail around that. But if you can let us know what it is and who the target audience are, we can do some comms around that. We're going to our show on the 14th of September, so if something's ready for that, that's something that we could take out to talk about generally, and the thank you event that we referenced, that'll be taking place in September, so we could take it to our carers there from a Monmouthshire perspective.
Right, okay.
Perhaps what you could do is use that as a focus group, if you like, and just see if people think it's going to be something beneficial, or if they hadn't even made, like, if that wasn't a consideration for them, would it be for other people? So, if, that could be an opportunity just to kind of get some feedback really on whether it's something that we could use as a recruitment tool, or whether foster carers feel that we should be focusing on something else. And bring it back to the group then in November.
Okay, so you're doing that with focus group in September and bring it back to this group. Did you say the event you were doing? No? Who's going to do the focus group?
So, well, it depends who turns up. So it'll be at Usk Show, but
it will be it will be Monmouthshire doing the focus group. No.
Well, we're at the show,
right.
So if we have the chance to speak to people, we never know who's going to turn up. So I'm not saying we're doing a focus group and then we get one man and a dog. Yeah. But yeah. It's definitely a chance in it. We'll have a chat and cross our fingers they're there.
I suppose what we don't want to do is invest a lot of time into putting this together, and then it wouldn't be something that people wouldn't even use as a consideration or barrier to stop them fostering. So it just gets people's feedback really on what's important to them.
Okay, so if the RDM sort of come up with that one-page brief about what it's about once it's been signed off and everything's been approved, we'll obviously send the full version around as well to yourselves, but we'll come up with sort of a one-page brief, and then that can be used to sort of build some proposals about how that can be shared. Any more? Are we ready for lunch? Yeah? Any other business? No? Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.